Alrighty, welcome to episode 1 of the RimWorld Stories. Let's select our thing. We're going to go with Naked Brutality. I always do Phobic Chillax. We're going to do Community Builder and, of course, Commitment Mode. Alrighty, simply type this in, test run. Run, and planet size I always do 50. Alrighty, we're not going to do that faction. No to those. This is going to be a very sparsely populated planet. No to that. Yeah, tribal world, no pirates. And high temperature. Actually, I just want a desert world, so normal temperature, low rainfall. Very low rainfall. And let's see what we get. Fingers crossed. Alright, so these are my mods. Very heavily modded RimWorld core. No idea. None of the DLCs yet. So this is going to be a chapter long story of one of the Shroe Dingers. And this is the role we're going to throw him on. Wait, grassland? Forest? Interesting wind condition chance there. Alright, so wind conditions. I'm thinking either A, he gets to that temperate forest, which would be neat. Or B, he gets a settlement around one of these oases with a certain settlement population, things of that nature. We'll find that out. We'll get to that bridge as we cross it. We're going to go ahead and drop him into an extreme desert, though. Alrighty, next. Alright, prepare carefully, as I said. Oh. Yeah, we don't need you. We are going to go with Shroe Dinger. Don't worry about the list of people. You'll probably meet them later if you stay with the channel. Alright, Shroe. Let's see. Let's change his hair. Let's give him something calming. Yeah, let's go with calming. There we go. Alright, those are his traits. His background story. Incapable of intellectual, so we're not going to get any research done. What we start with is what we get, and what we can buy from the tribals, so not a lot. Health conditions. Sure, let's see what we can do health condition wise. So, Shroe Dinger. This is Shroe Dinger model. Let's see what is his model number. Let's say 579-S for social. -1. Ooh, cat reflexes. What are those? That looks interesting. Do I really want to do this right now, though? So I haven't actually used this before. I don't know. I'll just leave that alone for right now. We're going to drop all of his skills down to 4, if they can go that low, and raise all of his skills up to 4 to give him a little bit of a chance. The Shroe Dingers are, after all, genetically engineered for these wonderful experiments, so we can tinker around with his genes as much as we want. Let's go to... yeah, let's just pop in the world. Alrighty, so as the Shroe Dinger pod is sent out for a desert experiment, with the map of an oasis temporarily implanted into his mind. He knows he has to go west. He doesn't know why or where he is, but westward is the direction he wants to go. As he looks out around him, he sees the ruins of a RimWorld planet. Rocks, rubble, and sand. So much sand, as far as the eye can see. And empty sarcophaguses line the ground. Not the sight he wants to see. Not the sight at all. He knows he'll need to find water, food, shelter. And in that order. Seeing that this barren landscape offers him nothing, and with a strange subconscious pull to go westward, he packs up and leaves this small abandoned patch of sand to hopefully find something a bit more reliable to live in. Alright. Whoa, okay. 3 times speed is a bit fast. 1 times speed is a bit too slow. There we go. We'll go 2 times speed. Most of this video will be done in 2 times speed. And he's off. Shroe Dinger travels across the desert. Unknowing of where he is, why he's here, he arrives in yet another patch of deserty sand. An unending sea, as far as the eye can tell. Alright. His next stop on his journey westward. This one at least has animals. He looks around. More sand, more ruins of an era long gone by. He catches something, plate still. Oh wait, his eyes drawn to silver. Out here in a desert, silver could be useful. If there's anyone to actually buy or sell from, he thinks to himself. But no food. Maybe a patch of grass or 2, but nothing really substantial to eat. He decides that even if there aren't any people, having some silver wouldn't hurt, and if there are people, having silver would be a very, very large help for him. So he quickly rushes off to begin mining some silver out of the mountain. So, back to actually talking. I hope you all don't mind a more of a storyteller approach to this. I'm hoping that it'll at least be more interesting that way. If not, just let me know in the comments section if you ever find this video. And if you do find it interesting and nice, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Share, and also make a blood pact with the YouTube gods. I don't know how these videos get put in, but something like that should help. Maybe. Probably. I don't know what the Susan demands. A sacrifice. Alright. Back to the story. Looking around, Shroe Dinger decides that it's best to keep heading westward. He doesn't know what's westward, or why he thinks he has to go westward, but something in the back of his head tells him he's not too far from it. So he continues on his trek. Before he leaves, he'll grab as much silver as he can carry and head out. Even if there's nobody on this infernal planet, the silver would at least make a nice statue or something. Every desert has to have an oasis, right? And he continues his walk. More sand, more ruins, more mountainous hills. A couple more animals, though. Progress. We've gone from just no animals to a couple of iguanas to actual animals. And a couple of cactuses are even growing out here. That's always a good sign. Shroe Dinger thinks to himself. With no weapons, he decides that if he's going to have to hunt for food, he might as well get the materials for it. He quickly heads down to the old neorite concrete table to deconstruct it. Hopefully get the materials he needs to form a club. He doesn't like the thought of taking life of even a poor little fox, but necessity dictates. and he can already feel the pains of hunger in his stomach as the first day on this desert hellscape comes to a close. Progress on taking apart the table is slow, not helped by the fact of the gnawing hunger. After a while, finally taking it apart, he gives up. He goes out into the sea of sand and lies down and watches the giant red sun slowly setting on the horizon. He's never seen a sunset like this before. Parts of him says he's never seen a sunset at all. But they're beautiful. And even with the pain in his stomach growing slowly stronger, he enjoys it for just a little bit longer. Until finally the need to eat becomes a bit too much. The sky is locked, and in a moment, a beautiful twilight as the sun sets over the desert and the stars begin to show. Alrighty, popping back out into that. So, these couple of long pauses are kind of due to the fact that I was called away from the computer for a moment. Not sure I'm going to... Future videos are going to include these. I'll probably stop recording and then restart recording. Hopefully the software I get will definitely help with that. And now then, I hope it's not too jarring. What are y'all thinking of the wind conditions? Sets up a settlement or makes it down to the forest? Also, another thing, I don't think I'm going to have him going tile to tile for his future migrations. He is instead going to just book it to each oasis tile as it comes up. I think that's a bit better. Caveats though, he can't go to the oasis tiles unless he has either had visitors, a trade caravan comes through, he captures somebody from one of the hostile tribes, or he goes through an ancient danger, though I'm going to keep the ancient danger structures at a minimum. Or try to anyways. Alright, back to the game. As the sun finally sets over the over the red and pink skies, Schrodinger takes apart the last of the neo-concrete tables and quickly moves to make a club, the pain in his stomach compelling him to get food. Any kind of food. As he tries to get the concrete into a suitable shape, his stomach begins to protest. He can't remember the last time he's had food or eaten. He looks around, trying to find the strange fox he'd seen before. Looking across what he can survey, from his vantage point he doesn't see anything. A moment of panic passes over him, as his meal seems to have left the area, and the growling in his stomach gets worse and worse. He doesn't want to sleep through the night with this pain growing on him. But without it there, what could he hope to do? Almost dejected, he sighs and gives the world one last look around. Looking for the fox, he finds it over there by the strange, old ruined structures of a civilization long since past. And for a moment hesitates. Could he kill it? A life for a life? The fox for him? He didn't know if he had it in him for a few moments. Looking up, seeing the countless sea of stars. Was it worth it? Was it justified? And with a tight clench in his stomach, he decides that yes, unfortunately, for the fox, it is justified. And he moves out to hunt it. As he approaches through the sea of sand, the fox slowly moves about, its movements getting slower and slower as he advances towards it, slowly through the dune-ridden sands so as not to disturb it or alert it to his approach. He arrives as it's asleep. His first hit doesn't manage to kill it, and he gets into a brawling match with it. Fortunately, he's able to overcome it without taking any injury to himself. He feels awful, but he begins to butcher the fox on the spot. The pain in his stomach driving him to eat. The meat's raw. It's disgusting and wet with blood, but it's the best he's got. And it'll keep him from starving tonight. He hauls the rest back to his temporary roofless shelter and heads back to collect the fox's pelt, refusing to see any of it go to waste. Its noble sacrifice guaranteeing that he makes it through at least one more sunset. Arriving back, he falls asleep immediately. Exhausted, he collapses to the ground. As the sun rises in the eastern sky, he heads out and watches it. Not a cloud is to be seen in the azure sea above. If only it was water out there instead of just empty sky. It would have been nice. Still, though, he feels compelled to head westward. Whatever is in his mind driving him onwards, he can't ignore it or deny it. And whatever it is, he eats the last bit of the fox, with only a few spongy pieces of meat to hold him over on his trip through the desert. But even those few scrawny pieces he refuses to leave alone. He'll take everything with him. The fox wouldn't have shed its life in vain. Heading back into the sands where he left his silver, he'll collect what little he can before heading out. Progress is slower, carrying wood, fox pelt, silver, other supplies. Makes the travel a lot slower. He arrives at his new campsite. This one has strange structures. A lot better put together. A lot more well preserved. He looks around, seeing if maybe this was the site he was compelled to come and visit. whatever programming in his mind that keeps compelling him westward. Yet all there is out there is desert. Not even grass. Well, a few spots of grass out there. None of the cacti. More uranium. This world seems to be rich with the heavy ore. And more silver. Deciding that he can't have too much. And that he doesn't have enough for a proper statue, even if there's no one on this horrible, horrible hole. As he passes the strange structure, all the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Something's not right about it. Something's very, very wrong with it. He looks over at it as he continues to mine. A solid, sealed structure of concrete. He looks around, looking at the iguanas and lizards. He's not hungry enough to kill again. It's the last thing he wants. The meat sits sourly in his stomach as he continues to mine away at the rock, collecting more and more silver as he goes along. And the sun slowly begins to sink into the sky. Another beautiful orange sunset. Only this time he doesn't stop to admire it or enjoy its beauty. He continues to work to collect the silver. Taking it the rest of his haul, he gets ready to leave. The sun's already gone by the time he begins to collect his supplies. He'll follow it, that blazing ball in the sky, into the western horizon. He eats what's left of the fox and heads out into the cold desert night. Still in a sea of sand, he collapses onto the dune-covered ground, too exhausted to carry on. Whatever compulsion in his mind that continues to compel him to go westward, it just doesn't seem right. What could be out here in the desert sand? Again, his stomach pains him, but he sleeps through it. The slow arrival of the desert sun wakes him, and he heads out. At first, he couldn't believe his eyes. He thought it was a mirage, but then he could see it. Palm trees, rippling water, and the small programming in the back of his head telling him to go westward, that strange sense in his head, stops as he comes upon an oasis. In the distance, he sees beautiful, fertile ground. Checking the small bag he's had with him that he's been carrying his supplies in, he finds a few seeds of rice and quickly heads over to plant them. He also finds strange-looking fruit that grow out of the ground. He begins to plant the rice until realizing that he can't go on anymore. Hunger overwhelms him and he grabs the first of the fruits, pulling it off and eating it raw. He begins cutting down one of the trees to make a shelter for himself. All around is still components, animals, grass, trees, cacti, life-giving water, nourishment, and nutrients. An oasis in the desert, but still no human life. Maybe the world really is abandoned. The structure is all that's left of a world forgotten. He begins planting the rice, getting a little bit of it planted before he spots a strange-looking plant over there among the others. Once he's sure he has enough rice planted in the ground, he begins harvesting the other fruit plants, and then goes in to harvest the strange thing. Somehow he knows it's an herb of some kind, though he doesn't know what. He quickly grabs the wood from the felled tree and begins to construct the beginning portions of a house. After felling 2 cactuses and a single tree, he quickly gets to work building his home. And as the sun begins to set, casting the sky into beautiful orange hues again, he decides he's done sleeping on the ground. There's so many trees, surely he could afford to splurge a little bit. He grabs what little wood he has left and begins building a small, simple bed. Laying on a bed for the first time in what feels like forever, he dozes off, immediately falling asleep. It's peaceful. The sound of the wind rushing over the oasis and through the palm trees at night, lulling him into a blissful and dreamless sleep. And the dreams start to come on. Dreams of lab coats, sterile tiles. He wakes up from that nightmare and goes and grabs some more of that strange food. Continuing to plant the rice in the ground, his stomach suddenly feels his stomach go sour. Cramping up, he grabs it and slowly begins chopping down the trees. Not wanting to continue to plant rice and bend down and bend up, bend down, bend up, he contents himself to cutting down more wood. The pelt and the other materials will eventually start to decay if he doesn't get them into a shelter of their own soon. And he needs a new door anyways. With a botched harvest on the strange fruit, he goes to get a door. Maybe roof up his building. Every movement hurts. His gut feels awful. But at least there's some relief in the rhythmic movement of cutting down trees. You don't have to rush, just walk, he thinks to himself. Just a little bit by little bit. He loses focus as he tries to build the walls. Nothing seeming to work right for him. He continues just to grab little pieces of wood and take them over. Hey, back over to grab some more wood. He slowly fills it up in his stomach until he can't hold it anymore. He vomits his guts out. And again, and again. And yet, the need for food drives him back to eating more of those strange plants. Hoping it was just a delayed reaction to the nasty meat he had to eat. Not that he bemoans the fox that. It had saved his life, but he doesn't want to ever have to eat meat again. Somewhere off in the distance, he senses danger. He looks around. Doesn't see anything in his little oasis paradise. He shrugs his shoulder as he carries the medicine back into his new little storage shed he's building for it. If his clenching stomach ever lets him finish it. And then tries to head back in before vomiting his guts out one more time. He sits in a corner and just meditates, thinking about all that life has done for him. It's rough out here in the sea of sand, but even out here, he managed to find some kind of respite. He decides that maybe a table would be good for his mood. Make him feel a little bit more comfortable as he tries to eat. As he thinks about where he'd put it, he lies down and goes back to sleep. The wind washing over the waters and through the palm trees and other trees lulls him to sleep. He quickly finishes his storage shed. Before he realizes he feels his stomach cramping. Not from the intense nauseous pain from before, but from hunger. He quickly goes and harvests some more of that strange fruit. He decides that he might as well harvest as much as he can and take it over to his little stockpile. No need in having to grab it, come back, grab it, and come back. Goes ahead and finishes up the stockpile, roofing it over. That should keep the materials safe now. He thinks to himself as he heads over and grabs his silver, the fox pelt, and the strange red wood that he had found at the other place. It seems to be so prevalent on this planet, despite there not being any red trees he's ever seen yet. He builds himself the small table, and after cutting down a couple more cacti, goes over and builds himself a little stool to sit down on. He takes the load off of his legs and sighs contentedly. He was right. Having something to sit on was definitely worth it. Spotting some more of those strange herbal-like plants off in the distance, he decides he might as well go get them. If he knew how to use them, maybe his stomach wouldn't have clenched up like it had done before. And with the temperature slowly getting worse and worse, he decides he'll go ahead and grab everything he can. By the time he makes it back to his stockpile, he's drenched in this thin sheen of sweat. He eats some more of that strange plant and goes back outside to cut down some more trees. He looks over at the oasis as he's cutting down the tree and thinks for a second, deciding maybe it might be a good idea to get some water into a small wood container. He doesn't know how he knows how to make a small passive cooler, but the thought seems to work well with him. As night falls, he gathers up the wood and goes and does it. He'd rather sleep in a nice cool house than in a sauna or spa. Dropping off the last bit of the food he just harvested and grabbing some more wood. He heads into his small little shack of a house. And he's happy he built that little cooler. It's so much nicer in there. Feeling a little bit more refreshed, he gathers some more wood before returning back to his shack. Sitting down at his table for a couple of hours before bed. Just thinking about all that he's gotten done. From going from the desert sand to having rice on its way. A cool place and respite from the desert heat. Water, food, trees. And with a contented sigh, he lays down in his small, simple little bed and goes to sleep. Thinking over what he should do next. He can't really decide. As he goes back to sleep in the middle of the night, knowing that dawn will eventually come soon. As he's tending the ground, he hears something coming through the palm trees nearby. He looks over and to his great surprise, people! He starts cleaning up the place. He hadn't expected guests. He hadn't even seen the first hint of guests. He looks over and sees if he can harvest some more medicine before they arrive, in case they need help through the desert heat. One of them does look rather old, after all. After doing a brief sweep of the area and getting his puke off of the ground, or at least hidden under the sand, he quickly moves over to try to get the roots set up. Already he can feel the oppression of the hot desert sun. He rushes back to his small camp, passing the granite ruins, and heads over to them. They're clothed in strange tribal garments. He offers them some of his silver for a bow, and they tell him about hostile tribes that live on this planet. He's glad he had gotten the silver now. Looking around, he's happy.